What is good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Hype Report. Today I'm with a very, very special guest, footwear designer, someone who's very big in the space. And just listen up, man, because he's really, really interesting. We had like a 60-minute call before we actually came on the pod a couple of days ago. And I just learned so much in those 60 minutes. So you will too. Rockwell, what's happening, bro?
Wow, very nice to be here. It's kind of crazy, you know, like it's an honor. It's an honor to be here.
No, mate. I said, like I said, man. I said on the call we had we switched to a guest format not too long ago, and I had like on my top 5 people we wanted to get like in 2024, and you're one of them, man. Super. I know your story is like insanely interesting. So
you're gonna make me blush, man.
Yeah, we'll stop the glazing now and we'll go into a little bit. So let's tell the people who don't know you what you do and who you are.
Yeah. I mean, I could start. I don't know where I could even start, but to give a quick overview.
Yeah, man.
I started a shoe company with Callum, also known as Callux, about 3.5 years ago. And I'm the head of design, production, developer, and you name it, anything to do with the product, from design to literally putting it on the people's feet. So that's a little overview of notwoways. But before even getting to notwoways is a whole other story.
Yeah, man. Talk us through it.
Oof, where do I start?
How did you become a lot of people will be wondering, like, how do you become a footwear designer?
Right. But even for me, like, I didn't even know it was a thing, right? So let's, go back a little bit. Let's go back to almost school. So I was like 12, 13, 14 years old, probably. I grew up in Amsterdam. So I was born and raised in actually a small city, probably half an hour from Amsterdam, called Voorburg. And most of my childhood, I guess from 1 year old to 17, I was mainly The Hague in Amsterdam that I was raised. And the idea of growing in Amsterdam and then going to uni in London is crazy. But to start with school and footwear. So I was always very much into sports. I was my mom was very obsessed with shoes. So that's sort of when it started a little bit, and I started understanding the idea of footwear, idea of basketball shoes. Even some of my friends were telling me about like, oh, there's this Jordan 5 Grape dropping in white and black. It's one of the reasons why I miss my shoes now, because when we grew up, we always buy, because they would release like a black one and a white one.
Yeah.
And we never know which one to wear, so we'd always just wear both.
That's sick.
But he sort of started that interest for me. And then I did some stuff with Foot Locker back in the days as well. And that's when I really started to understand like the launches. So for example, in 2009, when the Yeezy 1 Blink came out, the first Nike collab, you know, the high top with the white shape. Yeah. The Blink colorways was like black, glow in the dark outsole and a pink lining. So that was probably one of the first launch shoes that I got. Before that, I was wearing like Air Max 90s. There was a lot of Supras, like Supra Chimera Sky Tops, these kind of shoes. And so it wasn't really necessarily about hype or even resale value. It was more like trying to understand what was out there. But because I was always into fine arts, whenever I bought a pair of shoes, I would always try and draw them and try to understand the materials, the technicalities of them. Why did I specifically like those shoes? And so what started with understandings then became, I'm going to draw all of these shoes that I buy. And then it became a whole thing. And then we went to, let me think back. I'm like trying to think back now. So I was 17 and I was trying to get into uni, right? And I didn't know footwear design was a thing. So I was a painter at the time. I used to draw landscape paintings, portraits, animal paintings, and these kind of things. And I really enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite subjects, aside from sports and these kind of things. And so because I went to a British school in the Netherlands, everything was a British syllabus. So I did the GCSEs, I did the A-levels, all these things.
Yeah, for sure.
So when I applied for uni, what I quickly learned was that the Dutch system, they don't care about UCAS points. So I was like, so I just built all of this and I can't get into any of my universities in the Netherlands. And I had applied for one university in London, which is UAL. And I also didn't get that course. So I had 5 options of fine art that I was going to do, and I didn't get any of those. So I was like, okay, what do I do now? And then one of my tutors was like, there's a foundation degree that you can do at UCA. And if you complete this foundation course, you'll get an automatic entry into any of the UAL courses. So I was like, oh, maybe this is my way. Because I thought UAL was like the top tier for design and art and whatnot. So this is where I wanted to go. So if this is my way in, let's go this route. So at 17 years old, I moved to the UK, Farnham University, so a bit south of London. Did 1 year there for the foundation course. And that course is sort of dissected in 4, I would say, sections. So you have fashion, marketing, fine arts, and photography. So those were the 4 sort of core subjects that the foundation course was for. And obviously I was very excited because it allowed me to then understand a bit more about fashion, about photography, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I discovered that UAL had a footwear design course, a Cordwainers footwear course. So what that means is they specialize in leathercraft. So you learn how to make the shoes from scratch. You learn how to make the tech packs for the factories and how to market your shoes a little bit. Not so much the business side, but when I heard that that was a thing and you could become a footwear designer as a job, I was like, I need to build my portfolio for this exact purpose.
That was that the first time you heard that you could potentially be a footwear designer?
That it was actually a job that you could do.
Yeah.
Because I understand, like, even when you think about like, oh, I'm going to be a toy designer or a Lego designer, like someone has to do that job.
Yeah,
you don't consider that as even an option, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely Farnham was the beginning of realizing that, yeah, this is actually...
I can do this and get paid for it.
Like you could actually become a footwear designer.
Yeah.
Like the idea of it, still to this day, is a bit crazy, you know, if you think about it, because the bubble is very small with actual footwear designers around the world. But yeah, so that's very much the beginning, I guess, of growing up in Amsterdam.
How did you find coming over from Amsterdam, where you were brought up, to here?
Yeah, so I guess English was probably the first thing that was very different to what I had learned.
Yeah.
I learned English when I was, I think, 14, probably, where I could say I was like fluent, maybe a bit earlier. But even then, coming to this country at 17 years old, not having any friends or family back then, and then trying to come here with sort of an idea of, I want to go to uni. I want to, the idea of coming to another country is cool. But I was still a bit flustered of like, oh my goodness, I didn't get any of my uni choices. What do I do? Yeah,
for sure.
I still was drawing shoes and taking shoes apart and even restoring shoes at that time. And that's actually where I found one of the 85 Jordan 1. And then that sort of started my love for like vintage shoes, restoring sneakers, repainting them, resoling them for my friends. And I started understanding footwear from a whole different angle. And this was even before I started uni, right? So I knew how to restore the shoes, but I didn't know yet how to make them or how to pattern cut or anything like that. That's what uni really brought out.
Sick, man.
But yeah, that's the very beginning of growing.
Such a different approach to, because I went to uni and I studied kind of similar to what I do now. Obviously, you can't really study becoming the content creator I don't, maybe you can now, but I studied film and it was kind of relevant to what I do now, but it was so much more, bro, I went to a uni an hour up the road from where my parents brought me up. Like I didn't really grab any more culture. I didn't really, whatever. So it's interesting to hear that perspective for sure is what I'm trying to say. It's interesting to see how you can deal with that and cope with that. And probably, I imagine you learn a hell of a lot just from traveling and...
For sure. I mean, because my parents were split up when I was 6, so I was quite independent from a young age, but they've always been very supportive. And the idea of obviously leaving the house and going to the UK, my mom was a bit like, I'm not sure about this one.
Yes.
You're only 17, are you sure? I've never been there before. They've never been there before. So they're obviously worried and scared, but they knew that I was passionate about it, right? And that I wanted to try, because even if after the foundation year it didn't work, I could come back to the Netherlands and figure something else out. But yes, so my parents are from Suriname in South America. That's where they're living now. So they moved when I permanently moved to London. But yeah, they're far away, So I've had to sort of create a support system here, find my family, find my friends, find the right people that share sort of the way I see things and quite honest and direct approach of looking at things, which can be positive and negative, but
for sure.
I think people understand that I don't mean it necessarily in a negative way. It could be a Dutch thing, I guess, the honesty. But yeah,
Sick.
That's Amsterdam for you a little bit.
Yeah, mate. It's a lot, mate. It's so interesting to hearing that. Like I said, a bit of a contrast to probably what a lot of people, especially me, go through like growing up, especially like the educational system and then the job system and whatever. A lot of people will know you from obviously your collaboration with Callux, which has been pretty public. So let's talk about No Two Ways a little bit. I imagine something you're super proud of, and you boys have been smashing it.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff even before No Two Ways started that so almost contributed to No Two Ways.
Yeah, let's go.
It's the start of No Two Ways.
Sure.
So for going from obviously the foundation year to No Two Ways, I guess that gap was probably like 6-7 years. So I went, after I completed the foundation degree, I went on and did that footwear design course that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And that was awesome because I entered this space and everyone there was so passionate about footwear. Obviously very talented people. A lot of tutors and course leaders there had been in the industry or have worked in factories. So I was so interested in all their stories and all their expertise. But one thing that I didn't know is that when I arrived at this course, the first year we were just learning how to make heels and like cowboy boots and like basically women models and silhouettes, which obviously I appreciate and I understand that this is important to just know and learn how to create from scratch. So you would learn how to pattern cut, how to click and close. So that's like cutting the leathers out, and then literally how to put it from literally a drawing into a finished product. And then the hardship is like, oh, you've made one beautifully, but then you still have to make the other foot as well.
Yeah.
So like I learned that along the way. But this was back in 2014, 2015. And at this time, even for these courses, they didn't really think about trainers or sneakers. It was very much focused on the high-end luxury heels, especially when you look at their alumni. They had alumni such as Jimmy Choo and Sophia Webster, Nicholas Kirkwood, and these are very like luxury women's wear, primarily women's wear, let's say, products. So the courses were very much directed at this. So when I came in with all my trainer ideas, they're a bit like, we don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
So along the way, we were sort of learning together. And this was also before 3D printing was really a thing. So we weren't really even 3D printing outsoles or anything like that. So it started with like clay models or clay molds, or like vacuum forming different concepts, or literally just working with Vibram even to try and get some outsoles and lasts that our trainer focused for the university and try and build something. But even like the idea of outsole design, like the tutors had never really done it. They obviously understand what an outsole is, but they'd never really thought it or taught it to their students. So the beginning of uni was definitely like trying to push trainer design, sneaker design to the course really. So that was in the first year and second year. And then fast forward a little bit. So in my second year, I did an industry project. So there's always 3 industry companies that will come to UAL, which is actually, I think, really, really cool. And they do a project with you. And in that project, you can win either a prize like £1,000, or sometimes, for example, in my case, you could win an internship. So we had 3 companies come in that year, which were Nicholas Kirkwood, Callux, and Inditex Group. So Inditex Group are the umbrella company for Zara, Pull&Bear, Bershka, Stradivarius, Massimo Dutti, et cetera, one of the biggest fast fashion umbrella companies in the world, right? If not the biggest. And the problem was that I wasn't really sure about this project because it was fast fashion, and I wasn't sure on the idea of designing for them, whatnot. But because the other 2 projects were Callux and Nicholas Kirkwood, which were all women's wear projects and not even trainer projects, I was like, okay, if I really want to do trainers, I'm going to have to do a madness with Inditex and just go free and go crazy. So that's exactly what I did. And I ended up winning the internship. So that was probably the first sort of moment where I was like, oh, wow, like this industry group actually liked something that I designed, like that was like the first, like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So they offered me an internship. I would come for 11 months the year after. So how the course works is between your second year and your final year. If you find an internship, you can do a sandwich year. And then after you come back, you can then finish your course. So I went on and obviously finished second year. And then I went to Spain in Alicante to do this internship, which was going to be 11 months. But after 6 months, I was basically went from an intern to a junior designer straight away, because they were buying a lot of the styles that I was drawing for many brands, primarily Pull&Bear, but a lot of the Inditex, both men and women sides. And then I just grew the ranks very quickly. So after a year, I was one of their lead designers.
So how old were you when you were the lead designer there?
When I was one of the leads, I was 21.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
That is insane.
And that's when, thank you. That's when they started.
I don't know what I was doing at 21, but it definitely wasn't anything to do. I don't know what I was doing at 21. Probably peak COVID, sat in my bed doing absolutely nothing.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I learned a lot there, right? Like I went traveling to Japan, South Korea, to the factories in Portugal and China. And that's how I got a lot of my contacts as well. And I started understanding the fast fashion side, right? Even though there were some things in fast fashion that I didn't really fully resonate with my identity, I still understood that it's part of the industry and a very important part of the industry that I wanted to understand, right? And yeah, it was a very good time. And I ended up staying for almost 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And the funny story about that is that after those 11 months, I obviously also had to go back to uni for my final year. And they were like, would you just not finish and just come and work full time? And I really thought about it, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. And I was like, on one side, I've already done 2 years of this course. I only have 1 year left. Should I just complete the course? But on the other side, it's like, you never know what could happen after a year, right? They might promise you one thing and things could go south or whatever, and you just don't know.
Yeah, it's a big risk, yeah.
So I just really didn't know what to do and how to take it. And I was excited. It was fun. I'd only done 1 year and I felt like I still had room to grow and so many things to do. And one of the projects, a very exciting project that came out of Inditex, was a collaboration with a MotoGP racer called Marc Marquez. At the time, he was a 7-time world champion, and we had just signed him. And this is really when this collaboration started happening for Inditex Group. And he was doing his first signature shoe. So I was put in charge for all the collaborations. So I did his first signature shoes, which ended up, we bought like 60,000 pairs for that one block, for that one season. And they sold out straight away in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then the next release, we upped the quantity again in a sort of similar fashion. And it was super, super interesting how this was the start of collaborations for them. But there were so many things as well. There's so many problems. Like there's so much in fast fashion that I disagreed with. A lot of things that I can't really say on this podcast, but a lot of things that made me realize what I don't want to do when starting notwoways. And that came down to like the sustainability side, the numbers that we're producing and how fast things are being made, the lead times on things. Because one of the problems that, for example, Pull&Bear specifically had was that their audience didn't want to wear stuff or items with Pull&Bear on the shoes. But in the end, that's their brand, right? So it was a very much like, okay, let's rebrand. So I created this thing called X-Dye, which was actually a denim sort of capsule collection they had done in the 1990s. And because I still had all the trademarks and the legal stuff to it, I was like, why don't we use this? I'll create a logo and we can use this as our sort of footwear line. So I created this whole X-Dye line for them, and which they still use to this day. And suddenly their audience loves to wear X-Dye on their shoe. So that was probably the first step of the idea of starting a brand within a brand within a brand.
Yeah.
But yes, so let's go back to uni. Otherwise, I'll just keep going on.
Yeah, mate. No, mate. It's so fascinating, man. I probably should intervene a little bit more and stop just listening. I feel like I'm
no,
just a sponge. Good. Like just
stop me if I'm off.
No,
too
man.
Much
No, don't be silly, bro. Don't be silly.
But going back to uni, so I was just about to go to my final year, right? And I was just telling about how I wasn't sure what to do. So I went to the uni. I was like, look, I don't want to give up this opportunity that I have with Inditex yet, because I feel like I can still get experience whilst completing this final year. So I asked them, will I still be able to pass and get a good grade, even if my attendance was, let's say, 50%? And they were like, well, your attendance shouldn't be 50%. And I was like, I know. But yes, of course, you will still pass as long as you complete the work, you tick all the boxes, and we understand that you need to do what you need to do. So I sort of had the green light already from UAL. And keep in mind that at this time, remote working wasn't really a thing. This was before COVID. It was like 2018. And even UAL or Inditex had not really done any remote, really, unless they're like developers in other countries that live there or have an office there, right? And then they liaise with them like that. But specifically working at the headquarters in Alicante and then leaving to go to be in another country and working remotely from there just wasn't really a thing. So anyways, I managed to negotiate with Inditex to agree that for 2 weeks a month, I would be in the office, in the headquarters, working full time. And then 2 weeks I would do remotely. And it was sort of a Brexit situation as well, because I had only had 4 years. So I couldn't get my settled status yet. So because I needed 1 more year. So I basically managed to find a way that if I do 2 weeks in Spain, 2 weeks in the UK, 2 weeks in Spain, I would able
to get constantly coming back
to get the settled status, but also allow me to finish university and allow me to work for Inditex at the same time. So at the end of it all, yes, I was every 2 weeks traveling between Alicante, London. It was crazy. Well, I was still in the same house that I was in with when I was an intern. So like living situation was fine. But yeah, 2 weeks up and down was absolute chaos. But then when I was finishing my course, I was obviously still doing design stuff for Inditex. So there were so many simultaneous things happening. And I think I learned a lot along the way of how to manage different projects at the same time, which I noticed now with notwoways, how I'm able to manage this a little bit. So I did that, graduated. Then after I graduated, I went back to Spain for 2-3 months, so I think until like November 2019. But at this time, I still hadn't had all the whole year for getting the settled status for the Brexit situation. So I knew I needed for at least 6 months minimum to find something in the UK to do. So I started reaching out to different brands. I had a friend, I was working at Burberry at the time, so I had an interview with them. And I was about to sign something with Naked Wolf, another quite luxury brand, both of which the design teams are based in London. And I was very close to agreeing with Naked Wolf to become one of their designers, or footwear designers, for their men's collection. At this point, we were quite young as well. And that was almost going to happen in the sense that I would start in February. So at this point, it's November, right? And I was going to start in February. I was literally on my way to London from Spain for another, like a little bit of a Christmas break, I think, for like 2 weeks. And then as I was at the airport, I got a message from, now we're getting into the juicy stuff. I got a message from Matt, who was one of Callux's editor at the time, saying that he told me I have a friend who I work with. He's really into shoes. He just wants to understand the industry a little bit or talk about footwear a little bit. And he didn't tell me that it was Callum at the time. And I was like, of course, I will talk to anybody about footwear. I love talking about shoes. I could talk about shoes for hours. Like, if anything, I will talk too much about shoes. So that's how sort of that came about. And then we met up. And then I've realized it was Callum.
You're like, oh shit,
what's going on here? Is this like, am I being filmed? What's going on? And I can't say that I was like a super watching every single videos, but of course I had heard of him. I've heard of the things that he had done and some very inspirational stuff as well that he had done. So for example, the Quietest Room video that he had done, like that was one of the videos I had watched, or like the monkey video, like all of these. So I did know who he was. But I wanted to understand really how much he cared, because for me, when I met him, he first started telling me like, oh, for 2 years he's been trying to do something in footwear. It's never been done, especially in the creator space. Yeah, he understands it's very hard, and he's been trying to talk to a lot of factories and established brands, and there was all these false promises. People going to his house or looking at his shoes to design a collection, but then they never replied with a collection or anything. So 2 years go by and he had learned absolutely nothing about the industry. So when I heard that, I was like, this is not the industry that I know, right? This is like, usually the footwear industry is very open, and it's hard and it's very stressful at times, but they're happy to share that. They don't really gatekeep that much unless it's suppliers and factories and whatever, but the actual how the industry works should be quite open. So when I heard that story from him, I said to him like, look, I have this opportunity here this Naked Wolf brand, and I'm not sure exactly where your mind is with all of this, but what we can do is before I start this Naked Wolf, I can bring you up to speed on the industry about how it works, how everything's set up, and then you can decide after whether this is actually something you want to pursue. But at least after, let's say, those 2 months, you'll have learned something, because I felt so bad that he had wasted 2 years of his time and learned nothing. So for me, the most important thing before even the idea of starting something together was, let me see how much I can teach him, and then he can make a more educated decision on where he actually wants to go and do this. And I wanted to double check as well, like whether it was just a money grab or whether he actually was in it, or how deeply he was invested in it. Because the way I view things like career and footwear design, and even just footwear as a whole, even for people that want to get into footwear, I normally explain it in like 4 stages of, I don't know what the right word is in English, but let's just call them 4 stages. And the first stage would be talent, right? So someone can be very talented, and that will help you get to certain places, and that's the starting point for sure. And there's a lot of talented people. There's so many talented people around us. Mm-hmm. Then the stage 2 is the hard work you put in, right? So it's like, this is why they always say, oh, hard work beats talent. And I agree with it, because this is next stage up. It's like, no matter how talented you are, how much hard work you're willing to put in is what's going to make the difference between someone that's talented and someone that's talented and hardworking, right? Then the third stage would be passion. So it's like, how passionate are you that you actually want to make this your career? How much do you care that you actually want to find out who you need to know to get to where you want to be? Like the hustle side, like how much do you actually care? How passionate are you when something goes wrong that you'll come back up, stand back up and come out on top? So that's the third stage. And then the final stage is almost, it's in a way, it's a negative thing, but also I see it as a positive thing. It depends on how you look at it, but it's obsession. So obsession comes to the point where it's like, out of working hours, do you eat shoes, breathe shoes, sleep shoes? Are you waking up in the middle of the night because you've just come up with a design and you just have to draw it? So I even have moments, I have a whiteboard next to my bed, right? And sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and there's a shoe drawn on this whiteboard and I'm like, I don't remember doing this. And it will just be a moment like waking up at like 3 a.m., quickly sketching something that I had in mind, and then I just go to sleep again, right? But sometimes I don't recall any of it.
Wow.
And then I look at this board and I just see stuff. Some are awful, right? And some are like, there's actually something here. Like, it's like an idea.
Sick, yeah.
So that's like where the obsession comes in. It's like, how obsessed are you working 16-hour days, working in the weekends, the grind, the hustle, and I'm sure you understand this as well. And if you have all 4 of these, you have a very high chance of generating some level of success or getting lucky by putting all these 4 parts to the puzzle, really. So this is one of the things that I mentioned to Cal as well, and I'm trying to understand his side of things. And he was literally as talented, as hardworking, as passionate, and as obsessed as I was, not just in his field, but also with footwear. He just didn't understand where to start.
Yeah.
So that's when we realized. So after those 2 months, it came to an end and I had a decision to make, right? I was like, do I go and work with this established company, or do I try something with Callum? Because he really wanted me to be involved in the whole thing. And then I explained to him, like, look, I'm only 3 years into the industry. I am maybe not the guy to take you on this journey, because A, I'm not that experienced. Yes, I know suppliers and the sneaker community around the world. I know how to design shoes, how to make shoes, how to restore shoes. And then I have quite good knowledge of history and the future of footwear. But these kind of opportunities normally only come when, after you've had like 10 years or more, or even designers now that have been in the industry for 20 years, they one day would love to start their brand, right? So I just didn't feel like I was ready. And I said this to Callum. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm your guy. I want to help you for sure. Like, I love how passionate and how obsessed you are, and it rubs off on me too. But I don't know if I'm the guy, in all honesty, because I wanted him to know what he's signing up for. I don't want to give all these false promises and him realize that I'm not the guy. Do you
think there was a bit like a kind of imposter syndrome? Because a lot of people who are super successful, they kind of get that, like, well, maybe it's too soon, I'm not ready for that type of thing. Do you think that definitely played a part in Or was that maybe that was going through your mind at the time and making such a huge decision? I mean, it's a massive, massive leap, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely think imposter syndrome is a mindset. And I definitely agree it exists. And in a way, it does keep you humble. And I think it's a very positive thing. But it was more just being honest with him, right? It was more just telling him what I can deliver. And if that's something that he's interested in, then let's do it. Of course, at the time, the budget that he was willing to put into it, or we were willing to put into it, was way lower than we had anticipated. But it was fun because I learned a lot as well, right? I knew nothing about really the creator space, the YouTube scene, besides just actually watching content.
Consuming.
Or even the business side of starting a brand. I had never started a brand before. I'd never run a business before. All I know is how to draw shoes, how to make shoes, how to produce them, and like how to buy them and queue up for different shoes, right? So like even if we talk about some of these shoes, which we might get into later, because I've got some of my favorite shoes here, but I don't know when you want to jump into this. But for example, when I was back in Amsterdam, so this shoe specifically.
Yeah, we're grabbing, bro. We're grabbing.
So these are A6 Gel Saga. There were, at the time when I got these, hundreds made.
Yeah.
It was a friends of family. I'll get them out. I'll talk about the gloves in a second. You might recognize them. I don't know if you've seen these before.
Yes.
I have worn them a couple of times.
Let's take a look.
So there's 100 of those made initially, Amsterdam exclusive, let alone a few in the UK 8, right? And I managed to get my hands on a pair through some friends that I knew that were very close friends with the Pata guys. So this is obviously a Pata A6 collab. And obviously back in the days, 2009, Pata was killing it, right? With all the chlorophylls, the cherry woods, all the Air Max 1. So I think this was a reaction to that. But the idea of the X's on the laces and I love that to bits. Man. But on top of that, with these hundreds, they had some exclusive gloves that you could only get when you're at the event.
Yeah.
So to have the pack or the pair with the gloves is there's not many. I don't think you'll find these on StockX or even Flight Club. Like
really not many around at all. So how many of this I guess this exact pair are around in the world, do you think?
I wouldn't know based on size what the size distribution was, but I do know that they did a slightly bigger release, a 300 pair release in the UK.
Yeah.
So this released on December 1st, I think 2016 or 2014. I can't really remember. And then in February the year after, they released in the UK 300 pairs. So in total, that's 400 pairs around the world.
So what
I don't know how many there are in the UK 8. If I had to take a guess, I would say maybe 20.
Damn, that's sick, man. That's
let alone
sick.
With the glove.
Yeah, that's true. The accessories. What do you think? I guess we're talking about an A6 kicks now. What do you think about the current hype? I mean, that
A6
kind of
specifically.
Yeah. I guess that is a trend that is really popping at the moment. Well, I mean, you probably know more than me about trends and predictions, but in terms of what I see anyway, there's a lot more kind of sneakerheads moving away from, I guess, Dunks, SBs and Jordans to maybe the more kind of dad-like silhouettes. What do you think about that?
It's interesting. It's very interesting that you say that because there's a lot of perspectives on it, right? Because the way that I view footwear comes from almost like 4 or 5 different angles. The first angle is understanding the footwear cycle, right? So it's like the footwear cycle works in waves. So what we're seeing now, even with the Jordan 1 sitting and whatnot, like we've seen that before.
Yeah.
How the Sambas are very relevant now. And the mids, no one cares about Jordan mids at the moment. Everyone cares about Sambas. Like it's a very interesting concept that no one really could have predicted. But I think dad shoes and chunky trainers never go away. And I love to see the history and the cycles that we've seen. And on the other spectrum, on the complete other side, is like the buying cycle, right? So retailers buy generally 2 years in advance. So they will already know what they're going to stock in this year, definitely, but next year, and probably in some cases for some brands, 26 already as well.
So how, if you don't mind me interrupting, how does that work? So like a buyer, like for a store or whatever, how do they predict these trends? Are they, I guess a part of their job is to predict what will they need to buy the stock in the next, for the next couple of years?
For sure. So a lot of it is reactive, right? So a lot of it is reactive of what's relevant now, and they understand that their audience might jump on it a few years later. So for example, I believe that one of the reasons Jordan 1s are sitting now is because of the buying cycle 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Jordan 1s were popping, right? They were going crazy, whether they were mids or the OGs or the reimagines, or maybe not as early as the 10, because that was more like 2017, which is already 7 years ago, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But a bit earlier than that. Like I understand when a buyer sees that Jordan 1s are not sitting and they're selling out quickly, why they would want to buy more Jordans for their next buying cycle, because they assume that that's a trend. But like the Sambas, I don't think anyone could have predicted, because even the one that got popular wasn't the first round of Wales Bottom Sambas, right? But then,
no, that's true.
Then looking at the ones they're doing this year, like even with the snakeskin and all this stuff, it's like the Sambas are here to stay. So if looking at it from that perspective, so you've got the buying cycle and you've got obviously the history of cycles, but then on top of that, you have also other reactive things. So for example, why Nike now is pushing Jordan 1 lows very heavily, especially if you look at all the releases in the next quarter, 2 quarters, they're all lows, right? So if you look at the trophy room low, if you look at the Chinese New Year, you look at the year of the dragon, you look at the Easter stuff, you look at the lattes, and all these are all lows. And I think it's a reaction from the Sambas talking, right? And I think Nike is sort of trying to act on these. ASICs, I'll be honest, I don't really follow as much as I should. I love what they stand for. I love the Pata collabs, and I love what Ronnie Fieg does every now and then as well. But I think the real brands that are making a dent in the current footwear industry, especially last year and this year, are New Balance and On Running, On Cloud, one of those. The reason I say New Balance, ignoring the Aime Leon Dore stuff, some of the collaborations that they've got coming up, and then the new one, what's it called? It's the 1609R, I think it's called. The one that was also revealed in the previous Fashion Week with the Watanabe collab, which was sort of a reaction to the Martin Rose Air Max we saw towards the end of last year, the super faded ombre color looking one. So you knew one that Watanabe is doing one with the 1609R New Balance shoe. It's using like the tooling, but it's a very formal shoe, and I think it's very interesting this side. But then even the collaborations like the Miu Miu Sambas that are coming out, or if you look at On, the reason I bring up On is very interesting because they're not a sneakerhead brand, right? But they are selling very well, and they have a certain niche and a certain audience that really speaks to them. And then when you look at the collaborations that they're doing, like with Loewe last year, and if you look at the collaboration they're about to do this year with, what are they called? PAF, Post Archive Faction. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're a South Korean brand.
Okay, nice.
And On is doing a collaboration with them coming out later this year. I think they leaked it in the runway a couple of months ago. And this is like really interesting because if Loewe is their first collaboration, this is their second collaboration. And they're opening so many flagship stores. Like they've just opened one on Spitalfields Market, right, in Liverpool Street. Like I'm following what they're doing, right? And that's not saying that the other brands aren't doing bits. They're all doing bits. It's just very interesting to see where fashion is going a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was reading the thing on Business of Fashion about Nike struggling a little bit. And then this morning I even saw that they were revealing like a $900 Jordan High and Jordan Low, like similarly to the Pinnacle stuff that they did in like 2013, 2014. So they're re-bringing that back, but it's just a white shoe, made in Italy. Okay, I get that, but I wasn't really too sure if they know what their audience actually wants from them, because I don't think that's it. Like I know they're feeding a certain niche, and certain people want these very premium products, but I'm not sure how much they're listening. But I do get it. I do understand what they're trying to do. And Jordans are still one of my favorite shoes I have, right?
It's interesting you mention New Balance as being such a popular a brand this year, or a trending brand, because obviously they have been popping for... They were probably after that kind of period of, like you said, mids and the standard dunk hype. New Balances were definitely one of the protection packs and stuff like that were definitely one of the emerging shoes post that hype. And a lot of people who, well, I mean, I don't really do this type of content, but a lot of people who do trends content on social media and short form content have said New Balances have kind of had their time and they're done. But it's interesting that you say that's not true.
Yeah,
it's all a game of opinions, right? Completely subjective and stuff.
It's exactly that, and it's trying to educate yourself enough to understand and make the best decision that you can. Because even when it comes to the design process, knowing all that information, it's quite hard to then predict what we should be doing next.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just one of my...
Let's go through some of the kicks, man. You've brought in...
Let's do that.
So let's take a look at a professional footwear designer's grails and his little bit of his sneaker collection. Let's do it. Now we're looking at some of the grails of a professional footwear designer. Let's get into it, bro. Talk me through them. What we got?
Yeah, for sure. So I brought you 3 of my favorites.
Yes.
I tried to get a bit of a mix in there because I do have a lot of shoes that I bought between 2010 and 2020, probably realistically.
Yeah.
Because pretty much now all I wear is notwoways, right? Like even what I've got on today are notwoways.
Got to plug them. Yeah.
Unreleased. I don't know if we'll ever release them, to be honest.
They're crazy.
I'll get your opinion on it later to see what you think of them. I want an honest opinion, right?
Yes.
But I brought a few shoes. Maybe not necessarily all of my favorites, but I think worthy of talking about, and they all have a bit of a story. But going back a little bit, some of my favorite shoes that I own are, I've got the 2011 Mags, I got the Sean Wotherspoon, sort of, what do you call it, a hybrid really, of the 98 and the, was it Air Max 1 Sole on the 98 upper?
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Rainbow corduroy colorway, right?
Yeah.
So some of those even more recent shoes that I've bought were the Tiffany Air Force Ones and even the Fear of God basketball Sesame colorway.
Nice, yeah.
Like I like them a lot, even though I had to get like 2 sizes up. Like I really appreciate what Jerry's doing with them. I know a lot of people didn't like them that much. And then also I'm aware like a lot of people don't like quality control and these kind of things on shoes, which is why I brought some of these shoes along just to chat about it a little bit.
Let's take a look, man. Run me through them.
So the first one, let's talk about the ASICS Gel Saga Pata collaboration, 400 pairs in the world. One of my favorite shoes, having grown up in Amsterdam. The green and red colors with the X's on the laces. I absolutely love that to bits. Even the embroidery, the X embroidery on the tongue. These kind of little details is what do it for me. And then add the pony hair to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, this the sail color midsole, and this is up there with some of my favorite shoes. And I might be slightly biased because of it being Pata, and they're also very Surinamese driven, which is what I stand for too. And the fact that it's an Amsterdam collab, so it's like a perfect shoe in my opinion.
Yeah, that's sick, man. I mate.
We spoke about the gloves, I think, already. But
yeah, mate. It's nice. I seeing people's grails. I think sneakerheads who mature and just get older. It's a lot more about, like you said, like your personal connection about how, you know, where Pata's from and what they stand for.
Right.
That's what interests me. I'm kind of going through that a little bit more now as I've kind of stepped back a little bit from chasing content and stuff like that. It's a lot more about personal attachment to shoes.
Exactly that.
And that's mate, it's amazing, man. It's the best thing in the world, getting something like, you just know, like if you like shoes, as soon as you get that shoe or one of the shoes you really fuck with, it's just it sounds weird, but there is a connection. It's effectively just leather and bits and bobs. No,
I fully get what you're saying.
But there is this amazing feeling with it, which makes me sound like a massive virgin, but it is true. Right.
But yeah, let's go to the
what else
next
we got?
one, I guess.
What else we got? Let's put these down here.
So the next one is another Pata collab. This was a Nike by You that they did, I want to say 2019. And
nice.
This was during the period where they had the Air Max 90 and the Air Max, this is a 95. They had the actual release, right? It was a navy with a white midsole. And I think they did a reverse. So it was a 2-piece collection where one of the shoes had the Air Max 90 sole with the 95 upper.
Yeah.
And the other one had the 95 sole with the Air Max 90 upper, right? So that was the releases. And in all honesty, I didn't like them at all.
Really?
I just like, I'm never going to wear this. Then with the 90 sole looks all right, but you know, it could be better. Then they did this for only one day. They just randomly did a Nike by You thing, and it went quick. Like I had to panic fill. I've never done Nike by You so fast in the history, because that's where you start, right? Like as a designer, like you always go on the Nike ID stuff and you start making stuff. I've never had to do it this fast, especially the ones with the 90 sole, with the 90 outsole, because those went, I want to say, in like 8 minutes. It's okay, imagine trying to create the shoe.
Because it's not just, for people who don't know, it's not just checking out, bro. You have to kind of custom make this thing. And it can be a little, I haven't done that in ages, but sometimes it can be a little bit laggy, a little bit slow.
Exactly that. And
so I imagine making it quick is a nightmare.
The reason I brought this in is because it was sort of a reaction of me not liking what they did, but the options that they provided for a Nike by You was beautiful. And I don't know anyone that has this pair either, because yes, it's a custom, right? But it's a custom with a collaboration.
Yeah.
And it's a hybrid of two shoes, which at that time they were doing very heavily, right?
They're nice, man.
And yeah, super, super fun. And probably one you won't see very often.
Nah, for sure. But sometimes they're the most special, you know?
Exactly.
They mean the most to... God, I'm really going into feels. It's really weird. But yeah, sick. Really cool pair. And then finally...
Yes, we have the 85 Jordan 1.
An iconic.
I've got a bunch of the Jordan 1s from 85 to 94 to samples as well. But the reason I brought this one in is because one of the things that this shoe is iconic for is the material quality, right? I'll be honest, they're not that comfortable. They're a bit stiff as well. Of course, they're a very old shoe. But everyone always used to go on about material qualities in Jordan specifically. So this is what I wanted to understand. And this was in the period where the Shattered Backboards 1.0 just came out, and everyone was talking about like butteriness and suede quality and all these leather thicknesses. And that's when I really started to understand what that even means.
Yeah.
And what the community wanted and how they viewed certain things. Because something like the Pinnacle Jordan 1s or the Jordan 4s Pinnacles, people didn't really appreciate purely on the fact that it was such a high price point, but they didn't actually appreciate the quality of the shoe. And then even when you look forward now, when you're talking about QC of product, right, and they're complaining that the Royal Jordan 1 suedes were bad quality, but when you look at the 2013 bread release, my shoe, one foot is almost tumbled and other foot is completely smooth leather. But at that moment in time, you were so grateful and so happy that you even had that shoe that you don't even care about the QC to that level.
Yes.
Whereas now people are getting salty about like a stitch missing or it not coming with something. I don't know. It's a bit crazy.
Yeah.
And I fully get it. I'm on their side with this because I'm one of those people that might buy a couple of pairs and then return two and then have the best pair. But from a notwoways standpoint, the quality control, especially what you approve as a sample versus what you produce, are two completely different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I brought this shoe in, because I actually used this sort of as a benchmark with the quality of our products. This along with many other shoes.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to understand is even the last shapes, right? The last and the outsole shapes. Like, why are the community so adamant? And at this time, they hadn't brought back the reimagined shoes yet. Why are they so adamant with this last shape or the shape of the height of the back? And even though they're so uncomfortable, I wanted to just understand. And that's exactly what I did with this shoe. So this was one of the shoes that really helped me understand the industry a bit better and footwear design a bit better.
Yeah, it's crazy. Really cool pair, man. Really cool pair. You've brought a few other pairs in.
Yeah, this is a bit of a notwoways thing. So should we talk a bit about notwoways?
Yeah, man. Yeah, run me, bro. Hit me. So
I'll try and keep it brief. I'm sure a lot of people know about notwoways and how it started already. I covered it a little bit. And then the first 2 years of notwoways was just me and Callum, right? We got along very well, but he didn't have any design bond in his body. Couldn't really visualize a 2D something in a 3D format. So I was trying to explain, this was all before AI or I wasn't really able to do any 3D rendering in the lead time that we wanted to do things in. So the whole thing started with helping him trying to understand what certain materials look like with certain thicknesses and going to these different conventions and trends reports to sort of help him understand why I make certain decisions. Because the point wasn't, yes, I get creative freedom, but the point wasn't just you do everything. No, he wanted to be involved in everything, and understand everything. And that's something that I really, really liked. And then when we agreed that we were actually going to start notwoways, one of the things that I said is like, if we're going to do this, I want to do this the right way. We're not going to do any white label. We're going to make it from scratch, have our own molds, our own logos, our own factories, our own suppliers, our own marketing, literally everything. Even to this day, we don't do any paid advertising or paid media or anything. Even influencer marketing are generally through nice gesture and yourself that would love to cover that, and we're very grateful for that as well. So thank you for that.
How good, bro.
But yeah, so that's sort of some things that we stood for. When even sourcing the factory, I've went all over the world looking for these different factories to the point where it almost became irrelevant where it was made, because the certifications and the standards that we wanted or that I wanted as a new brand were so strict that there were only maybe 3 out of the over 50 factories that I found by myself that were actually usable. 2 of which were in China, 1 of which we're still using to this day. And then there's others around Europe and Asia that we are diversifying in as well. But yeah, so that's the very beginning. And the idea of even selling product was scary, because in that space, no one had ever done it before. There have been some examples with like Kais Omar or Seth Fowler, or even more recently now with the Marcus Brownlee shoe. But back then, the creator space hadn't really been established.
Yeah, I mean, going from like YouTube merch is obviously, this is definitely not merch, but YouTube merch has always been a thing, right? And obviously creating a shoe with a YouTuber, which is so far from merch, it must have been difficult. I imagine the challenge of yours is to get out of that merch bubble and to make sure people do not view it as merch, because YouTube merch can be seen as a bit of a cash grab, or content creator merch in general can be a little bit, not a cash grab as such, but it's not always the highest quality, it's not always the most premium, it's not always acting as a brand on its own. It's often so tied with the creator.
For sure.
So my question is, how did you escape that bracket of merch?
For sure. And I think there's two sides to it. I would say the side of when we first started is one story, and where we are now is actually a different story, because we see it now differently than we used to back then. But yeah, when we saw those examples, and even like the Adidas Ninja collab not doing so well because it just didn't understand their audience, you really start thinking like, well, someone like Ninja was such a big following and they didn't resonate with the shoes. So even the idea of collaborations, and we spoke about it before, like for example, when even big giants like Nike, when they get people like Billie Eilish or Beyonce with Ivy Park at Adi, it's like they have these big names, even Drake, and they do a white Air Force. Billie Eilish did a white Air Force One, and you're telling me that no one wants this shit. You have Billie Eilish have a white Air Force One, and you have Nike.
How can it not do?
Right?
Whoa.
So that in itself sort of puts a bit of pressure on, but it also proves that it's very much about community, it's very much about product and doing things for the right reasons. So that's sort of how everything started in the beginning. And yes, I fully understood that at that moment in time, it was all about merch. The idea of YouTubers creating something, like things like Prime didn't exist back then yet. It wasn't really something that anyone had done before, which is why Cal wanted to do it so badly. And that's also one of the exciting things about it, that we could be the first to bring something real to market. The way we managed to sort of escape it being viewed as merch was that when we were designing the first shoe, we did everything as like a fashion brand would. So we would go to the trend shows, we'd go to the runways, we'd go to the material suppliers. We would talk to different communities that I had in Amsterdam, in London, in Spain, and ask them, and for me also to understand like what are people wanting to see in the industry that is not being fed right now. So things like the material quality, the material thickness, even how fast certain things crease, or the boxing experience. People weren't happy that they were paying 500 quid and they just got a pretty bad box, right? So taking all of these things into consideration, we realized like, oh my God, we can't sell this for £100, right? Because we wanted to put all these things in. So actually our first drop, when we dropped it, we were very nervous. We had 750 pairs. We put all our money in it. We would not make any money with that shoe, if not even break even probably, because we didn't even take a cut for ourselves at all, right? We just put everything into the business, especially the first 3 releases or so. And we ended up selling out, right, very quickly. It was 63 seconds, 750 pairs. So at that moment, we were like, oh my goodness, we're actually onto something. We might actually be onto something.
How did you
We
feel,
didn't buy
man?
enough.
How did you feel like after all of that work, and then all of a sudden, because I do like little, nowhere near, not 750 pairs, but we do like, I do release the hoodie, and we sell pre-loved shoes. And sometimes when the audience buys up, or the customers buy up really quick, it's the best feeling in the world. So what was your emotion like, man?
I mean, emotions were crazy, right? Like we were crying. We were thinking like, oh, we should have ordered more pairs, but we were literally put all the money into as many pairs that we could buy, right? It was such a long negotiation with the factories, because there's obviously MOQ issues, and we didn't want to make them in Portugal because they wouldn't be as comfortable, or they wouldn't be a Strobel boarded construction, things like this. So when we finally managed to agree, and even the idea of releasing it, that was already my moment of like, we actually did it already. Like regardless of what the sale was.
Okay, yeah,
I was like,
that.
I've managed to create this, bring a shoe out, grade it into the different sizes, have the packaging, have it arrive in the UK, quality control everything one by one. So all those 750 pairs, me and Carl sat there opening the boxes at our fulfillment center. It was absolute chaos, but it was so fun, right? Like 16-hour days, 18-hour days, setting up the website, preparing everything ourselves, taking pictures ourselves. So before we had Jack, our photographer, you don't even want to know how I did the white background pictures. I literally had a white bed sheet over my TV.
No way.
And I took the white backgrounds, and those were the pictures we put on the website.
Man. That's so cool.
To go from that to now renting out a studio every time we're taking a picture is crazy. But yeah, so to go back on your creator-led brands, how we view it now, actually, it's a positive. And maybe the idea of a YouTuber or creator starting this brand, regardless if people see it as merch or not, it's almost irrelevant. Because if they're still buying into the product, I think the reality is that people will buy merch if they support who the merch is from, right? So they will buy our product if they support our view and our vision and our aesthetic. So it's on us to build an aesthetic that attracts not only our current audience, it attracts a new audience, but also attracts other companies to want to work with us for our aesthetic. So that's something we're sort of trying to figure out now, because we used to work in a very heavy drop culture format where every 2 months we would have a release, right? Like the first 2-3 years of the business, which works great and it's amazing, but it's not scalable, especially if you want to build heritage and legacy.
Yes.
Because especially, so I've had literally this week, I had chats with Foot Locker, and next week I have chats with Offspring and Harrods and whatnot. And I already know that they're going to want to do a buying cycle for 26, right? And for me, it's like, I don't know what I'm going to release in 26. I know, I go to every single runway and I know what other brands are looking to release, but we're not a Prada or a Gucci Ancora or a Burberry runway, right? We are a small independent notwoways shoe brand that value sustainability and good product at an affordable price. And we're trying to find our aesthetic a little bit, but we don't even know if we're going to be here in 26. Like, not, of course we will be here, but like, as in like, will we even be selling shoes?
Yeah.
Probably, but we don't know, right? So the idea of people like that coming in and be like, oh, we would love to buy stock for 26, but we have no collection to show. Or we'll show them samples, of course, and get their feedback. And this is how I learn about what those buyers are buying from the other brands a little bit. And then I can figure out what we should release next. Which is why it's very interesting, because even though, for example, the Timberland stuff is coming out now and everyone suddenly is like, oh, Timberlands, they never really left. But I don't actually know if that's really going to be replacing the gap that Yeezy and Virgil left. I don't think it will be,
No.
And I think, like the examples I gave previously with New Balance and On Running and these kind of collaborations that have more utility as well to it, when you discover these collaborations, I think it's what's going to come next. And even for me, the star of the Paris Fashion Week this year was Carhartt, right? Their Carhartt Sakai collaboration show, I think, was the most beautiful runway that I've seen recently. And it's Carhartt. It's not even Margiela. Okay, Margiela. Okay. Margiela runway was good too, but it wasn't a surprise because I expected, right? Whereas the Carhartt stuff with Sakai, I was like, wow, workwear is going to be something. Carhartt have stood their ground with their aesthetic, and somehow with this collaboration have become luxury fashion.
Yeah,
and that's things like that is what I'm constantly trying to learn and understand, because I understand that in order to scale, we need to go into retail, we need to go into wholesale, we need to go into the shops, because that's how people can get our product. So trying to not going into the design process yet too much, but like trying to dissect the collection to fulfill wholesale and retailers, but also our D2C customers, but also do things that I like to do on a personal level. Combining all of those things is not easy.
What's next for No Two Ways, man? What's dropping next? What we got?
There's a lot of things in the works. Like we literally just dropped a collection last week, right? The HKE stuff. And that was 4 shoes. And we'd never done a collection before. So I was very nervous to see how that would go and whether it would actually resonate. And it was the first time we were using Cordura materials.
Yes.
And we had just previously done also a Deliveroo collaboration, a sort of collaboration partnership where you could buy our shoes on Deliveroo. Because like the utility of that I thought was super fun. And
how did that go down?
Well, so the idea of collaborations we've always wanted to do, right? And we just didn't know how to approach it because in reality, we aren't ready with an aesthetic that we really stand for yet. It's building and we have a story, of course, and people that will back us with what we stand for, but we're still developing our aesthetic, right? Which is why we have arrows, we have certain details that are present in every shoes. Even if you look down at the shoe, you'll see an arrow shape. It's one of the things we haven't even talked about really, and the sustainability side as well. So when it came to collaborations, I was like, in my head, collaborations make sense if the outcome has a utility to it, or actually there's a post-consumer experience with the product they've just bought. Because the industry is so saturated now with collaborations left and right. And like the Billie Eilish examples, like people aren't going to care if there's no other utility to it. So with the Deliveroo thing, it was important for me to do something that the industry hadn't really seen before. So being able to get your shoes within half an hour to an hour was quite new. I know it was only London based, but yeah, that was super fun and super interesting. And maybe we'll do an actual shoe with them one day, but it was more to test to see whether people would be interested and what the industry, how they would react to something like that. So that was that collaboration. But then going forward, so next week, or when will this go up?
So this will go out Monday, so it's 2 days.
So yeah, on 2 days later, on
2 days later on the Wednesday.
Day,
so we do have a couple of
we're releasing
Valentine's
a little
Day
Valentine's collection.
Here. Yeah, happy if I show them off, right?
I mean, this might be the first time they see it, but
okay. Hype Report exclusive. So
there's going to be 3 shoes, one of which people will know what they are, that third shoe is, but these 2 no one has ever seen before.
Sweet, man. So we got a foam.
We got the foams and the formula.
So here's the foams. Very nice.
This is a fully vegan collection, which is quite interesting.
Sick.
The shoes, if you look at the formula, the edges of the material are also hand painted. So you'll see on the edge of the upper, you'll see like quite a smooth finish.
Wow.
So that was very important to us.
I think the formula is my favorite.
And you know what the funnest bit is about this shoe, or about all 3 of them?
What?
Is that we've injected Sakura cherry blossom scent into all the phylon parts of the shoe. So when you smell the shoe,
damn, it does as well,
and the foams as well.
How does that work, man? How do you get a scented shoe?
So it's similarly to how we inject recycled plastic bottle cap pieces in our other shoes. It's part of the density, the foam density, and the injection method when the outsoles are injected. So imagine the outsoles are like the outsole molds are a big metal mold that are open in the middle.
Yeah.
But the pallets that they put in can be scent injected, and you can make them last as long as you want. You can, of course, we have to test everything to have it.
Right, these are sick. Like these are amazing. Like these are beautiful, man. And they've got a little bit embroidery inside with love No Two Ways X for the Valentine's Day.
There.
You know, I love. You know, my favorite thing about it's just little stuff like this, man. Like the little info tag with the size, the upper material. Man, the sock line. It's so
between
cool, man.
these 2, which one would you wear?
Oh, well, I'm a big. I've always liked. Well, I like the foam runner, right? I was a big fan of the foam runner, but it never fit me, whatever size. So I'm a size 9. If I went 10, it didn't fit. If I went 9, didn't fit.
Exactly this, yeah.
So
I got two and a half sizes up, I think, on my foam.
Yeah, mine just didn't fit, man. It just didn't work. Like, so I can't wear them. I really wanted to wear them. I spent a lot of money on because each colorway in each release they kind of fit a bit different, right? And
that's interesting, right? Because if they change factory, and I'll quickly talk about that production consistency. Is like when you approve a sample, but then the production could be completely different because there's a margin of error that you can accept. So even let's say for any other brand, you buy UK 8, but let's say you buy 3 of them, right? And you will put each of them on. I'll guarantee you none of them are going to fit exactly the same. Even the same batch, same shoes, there's always a margin, maybe like 6 millimeters, if not more, of error in the production that some might fit bigger than others. And especially when you change factory. So what happened with the foam runners is when they, even with the slide, right, the easy slides, they went from factory to factory to factory, and each of them just fitted completely different.
Yeah.
So when you think you found a model and style, you assume the fitting will always be the same, but it never is.
No.
It never is.
Yeah, man, these are even I've spotted that kind of paisley design on the internal, man. It's so sick, man. It's just so many cool little details that I know we spoke about on the call a couple of days ago, that a lot of the big powerhouses the giants, as you referred to them, don't really do that much of anymore. So it's sick to see an independent London-based brand effectively doing the most, man. It's so bro, these are amazing. I don't know what I've got to do to get a pair of these. These are my favorite by a mile, man.
There's not many.
No.
I can't say the number, but this is one of the most limited shoes.
They're cool,
not as limited as these though. I want to show you these ones as well. This is another.
Yes, we have one more pair, right?
Yes.
Let's go. Right, let's put those away.
So I want to get your thoughts on it from many different angles.
Okay.
So my first question for you is A, what you think about them, and B, how much would you pay for them?
How much would I pay? Oh, dope, bro.
So these are the same shoes that I'm wearing right now.
Okay, so
I'll tell you a little bit of the story, but I don't know what I should do with them.
So is these are just a sample? It's not.
So I made 90 pairs.
Nice.
But I have no idea what to do with them. Maybe they will never come out, right? Maybe we just don't release them ever. Because I don't know what people think about high tops right now. Like I know we've just had a little high top wave with the Mac Attack.
Yes.
And the Jerry Lorenzos. But high tops right now are a little. I don't know. I still love high tops, right? Like even most of the shoes that I showed today were high tops, but
yeah. Well, I think
and they come like this. One foot is green and one foot is yellow.
No, I like the mismatch. I like the mismatch colors. I used to have a pair of the Street Hawker Dunks, and they are like very, very colorful, but they are effectively different designs on each shoe. I think one's kind of greeny and one's kind of orange, and they're really cool, man. So I like that. I would definitely wear a mismatch.
Would
for
you?
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Because that's why I explained to you before I would wear one shoe on my left.
Yeah, I think
right. That's where it comes from, really.
You have to own it, bro. But I mate, it's sick. I really like them. I like them. They're cool. Again, the high top. I guess, like you said. Oh, let
me give you a bit of an insight of why those patches are there. So there's some patches that you can put on the tongue.
Yes, so
and
these, right?
So the reason these came out, right? Or the reason I designed these, they're not even out yet. Or it might never come out. But the reason why it says 12 hours in Paris, let me give you a bit of a story. So it was last year, right? I just got back from Milan Fashion Week. I just seen the new LV trainer and some runways out there. And Jacques Mus was doing a very cool sort of installation at Galerie Lafayette. And I was like, I have to go to Paris, right? But in the morning of coming back from Milan, I was like, today is when Jacques Mus is doing this thing. I need to go. So I called my friend. I was like, oh, you fancy going to Paris for the day? And he was like, of course, bro, I'm there. It's Nigel. And but then I was like, what should I wear? Like, I don't know what shoes to wear. Like, should I just wear Model 1? Should I wear Formulas? What should I wear? So I go up to the sample room, right? And at this point...
you've got like a big wall, right? Of all I've seen.
And there was this green foot and this yellow foot. And I grabbed them because we get samples sometimes in left foot, sometimes in right foot. And there were loads. There was red, orange, you name it. And I grabbed these two and I was like, should I just wear mismatch samples to this Paris Fashion Week? And I was like, yeah, let's just do it. So I just grabbed them, put them on, was sat in some of the runways. There's some pictures with me wearing the shoes. And I was there for only 12 hours. So I left at 6 a.m. and then I got back on the train at 6 p.m., 8 p.m. roughly. So that whole story is built on spending 12 hours in Paris with wearing sample shoes.
I like it, man.
So they come with the patches. They come with a little lace. Do you see the little shoe with the gold shoe on the eyelid?
Yes, it's heavy. So it's really like no like cheap bit of plastic.
And 4 sets of laces, I think.
Yes, we got yellow, dark green, and a white spur.
And yeah, so I want to know.
They're sick,
what
man.
What do you think about them? How much would you charge?
How much? Bro, I don't know, man. There's obviously a lot going on, right? So the external accessories are obviously there's the Velcro element, which is pretty rare, and I imagine, I don't know about production-wise, but I can't imagine that's like a simple addition.
Well, the production of mismatched shoes is a nightmare because the factory is like, we're not making one foot. We're not doing one color.
Yeah, I mean, in this current market, I mean, you anywhere probably below. I don't know, mate. I mean, if you're having to pay some pairs of Jordan 4s are costing around 200, this is probably around that kind of mark, I would imagine. There's so much going on. They're so detailed, bro. They're so cool. Even
the tooling, like the outsole and everything, we open ourselves, right? And even the way the heel angles backwards, like, has been thought about. There's a perfect, because one of the reasons for that was our Model 1. It was quite hard to drive in because it was quite chunky. And I was learning how to drive at this time, so I wanted to make it sort of usable for your pedals, and heel drag as well. Because if you grab the Jordan 1 85, you'll see I have these little stickers on the heel.
Yes, I saw.
And the reason I do that is because the quickest way a Jordan 1 will lose value is the heel drag.
Yeah.
The moment it starts hitting your midsole, it's over. You might as well not sell them anymore, right? So the reason I put that on and I change it every now and then is because that's what then creates the abrasion rather than the heel itself.
Yeah, got you.
But how I managed to avoid that on our shoe is by just angling it already. And then you'll see the arrow actually comes out 1 or 2 millimeters.
Yeah, I see.
So that when it's actually dragging, it's dragging the arrow into the shoe rather than the actual heel. So you should never have any heel drag over severe cases.
That's sick, man. That's sick. It's really
and actually
smart.
that whole heel drag situation started with the Supra days, because all of the Supras are vulcanized, right? And what that means is that it's just a foxing of rubber rather than the actual cupsole mold. And what started happening with the heel drag is that I started getting holes in the back of my shoes because the heel drag is just dragging. And because it's just a strip of rubber, right? You get these holes here. And you'll see that in Converse, you see it in Vans, you'll see it in just any vulcanized construction. Whereas in our case, we decided to do a cupsole, stitched as well, obviously painted edges.
They're fire, man. So do you have I guess, no release yet as of these? You don't know, you have no idea if you're going to drop them?
I was hoping that you'd help me with ideas on when and how I should release them. I just literally
mate,
there's 100 pairs, 90 pairs.
90 pairs, man. Well, mate, you know, so the laces are different, aren't they? So these are rope laces and then these are more standard,
flat
right?
laces, yeah. And then what I would charge, I have no idea, bro. Like,
you don't know.
Formula with HKE, we did 120. Our Model 1 is 110. But look at everything that you get with it. I'm not really sure what to even price them at, you know?
You get a lot, and because you have so little, it is such a premium experience for any kind of buyer. So I mean, I would probably charge a significant amount, bro. But I don't know how much they cost to produce and stuff like that. And there is a lot going on, man. I think in this current market, you could probably surpass 200, but I would imagine with
you would pay over 200 for these.
I would probably, for retail, I'll probably pay a 180, 200. In this current market, where if you're paying for Jordan, like over some Jordan 4s are 210, right? And
true.
Crazy, man.
165, 170 on the average Jordan 1s as well.
Yeah. And then there's Air Maxes, these the new Air Max DN, which was debuted leaked last week, is retailing at 165 quid, and that looks really cool, by the way. But again, if that's what you're comparing against, and especially with all the additional features like I've mentioned before. These having that kind of consumer experience is almost as valuable as having the shoes itself, right? I love having shit like this, man. I love having shit like this. It doesn't really matter if I like it or not. Like, I do like this, but like sometimes that's why I buy a lot of, sometimes spend quite a lot of money on stuff like SBs, because they do come they are quite unique, right? And that is so your consumer experience is different per pair some of the time. So, bro, yeah, I would probably pay about maybe 180, 190.
Noted. It's really interesting because I wasn't even sure if we should ever release them, because I just don't know if people would wear mismatched shoes. But I think that you say that with 180, I don't know. You're giving me some ideas.
The UK scene is definitely behind in terms of mismatched kicks, right? The US are a lot more bold.
Yeah,
in terms
I would
of
say
what
generally color is not something very strong, especially commercially. Everyone loves their black, grays, and whites.
Yes, and everyone loves neutral tones at the moment, and for the last how many long years. I mean, with Travis Effect and stuff like that. So that would be a yellow and a green kick. I mean, that would be a an interesting one for sure. I don't know how that would be. I mean, I love that shit, man. I buy loads of different colored shoes, so I'm probably not the right person to ask. But mate, they're sick, man. I'm really impressed.
I don't know, man. Should we just drop them?
I think you should drop them, bro.
Should we just drop them?
I think you should. I'm not getting involved, man. I don't want to get in any trouble. But mate, they're sick, man.
I don't know. I'm thinking about it. Maybe I should speak to you off camera. Maybe we should do a little drop situation when you drop this podcast. I don't know.
Oh, mate, yeah, bro. They're fire, man. We will have a conversation afterwards.
Maybe we should.
Because
I wasn't actually going to release them until now that you're talking about. Maybe.
Bro, I mate, they're sick, man. And I like I said, I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of the mismatch. I think it's cool. It's unique. It's different, which is super cliche, but. Bro, like I said, I think they're fire. Final thing I wanted to run past you: trend predictions for this year. Now, a part of your job is to literally predict trends, as a professional. So I want to hear what are your predictions, man. So in terms of, I guess we can speak about footwear. We can speak about both very very quickly. So I guess fashion and footwear, man. What shoe do you expect to pop off this year?
I think from the runways that I was at last year, whether it's Milan, New York, Paris, we were going to see two very strong colors in both fashion and footwear. And that's going to be almost like a cobalt royal, almost Burberry blue. And we're already seeing it with probably the first shoe will be the Air Max 1 Big Bubble royal one, right? Okay. So that will be in April, but then there's going to be a lot of blue things you'll see. And then the other one is the Gucci Ancora Burgundy. So these two colors are very, I understand like it's a very brand orientated colors, but it will bleed into everyone else. And so it's blue and burgundy are, I think, blue the two colors burgundy. Purely from a fashion standpoint. If we look at footwear, I'm very curious because there's a huge opportunity because no one is creating right now. Everyone is sort of following a little bit. There are people creating, and there's some very interesting concepts from brands that aren't the giants. Of course, the giants are doing stuff like Nike and the Trophy Room shoe. I think is going to be one of the biggest shoes this year. Adidas's Miu Miu collaboration, I think, will be another huge hit. The Snakeskin Samba, which is the Whale Spawner's next run of Sambas, I think will be very strong as well. So I think we'll see a lot of snakeskin, safari prints, elephant prints, cheetah as well, from a footwear perspective. But again, there is a space like, okay, Yeezy's bringing their shoes back, but there's nothing new, right?
Nothing. No,
even the deconstructed thing is sort of a hoax a little bit on allowing QC things to happen a bit more. Because imagine if you get a deconstructed shoe and then your stitching is a bit off, you assume that's part of the shoes, right? Yeah. So it's a little bit of a theme there that will find its cycle back again. It's the same with shoes sitting right now. If you're very smart about it, and I'm sure you know more about this than me in the resale market, but there's shoes sitting right now that will go up in value in the next 2-3 years because of just the footwear cycle. But yes, I think those are probably my immediates. So
the Sambas are here to stay for this year?
We'll see a Jordan 1 low reaction a little bit.
Cool.
But yeah, Sambas are going to stay until at least September, I reckon. Things like the Solomon and all the New Balance dad shoes will stick around, and there'll be some crazy new things coming up as well. Like the one I was saying, the 1609R. I think that's going to be the next big shoe. The Action Bronson stuff as well. I've always done bits, very colorful side of New Balance. Emily and Dor is interesting because obviously they had their huge thing with the 550 during the time of the Panda Dunks being a huge thing and the 550s being a huge thing.
Yeah, I think they've dropped a fair bit in value now, I believe. I'm no expert in that area, but I think they have. I was looking at them the other day.
I think Jordan 11 Low Space Jam could be very interesting. That's coming out this year because I don't think the lows are getting enough love, but I also don't think it's the right time for them. Mm-hmm. But that will be very interesting because Space Jams are iconic, right? But yeah, I think, and well, more specifically with notwoways, is we have 2 more styles that feed into these trends, but with notwoways aesthetic and design language that I'm very keen to explore. We have a couple of collaborations in the work as well that I think we'll have 4 collaborations this year, which is very interesting. Of course, we're doing the scent injected stuff as well. So I think we'll see maybe a reaction on scent injected things. I'm very curious about the Paris Olympics and what Nike is going to bring to this, because they are one of the big, and I do have some insights on what that Nike is going to come out with a madness for the Paris Olympics. So I'm very excited. So I've seen some samples here and there, and wow, it's pretty crazy. I can't say what they look like, can't say what models
it's a big year,
and
man.
concepts they are, but all I will say is I'm happy we're doing this Valentine's drop ahead of that release. Let's just say that.
I see. Okay. Yeah, no, man, I'm pleased. It's a big year for event kind of collaborations, because you got the Euros, you got the Olympics, and with kind of the whole like.
Oh, and one more I will say is workwear. So when I was mentioning the car thing, the workwear, Timberland boots sort of fit into this category as well, but workwear when it comes. When I mean it's like Carhartt, you know, these kind of sort of purposed utility kind of brands are now going into the luxury space.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a whole different meaning to luxury, I think. So that will be interesting.
Interesting, man. Well, bro, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Guys, obviously you check out what these boys are doing. They're doing the most. Mate, it's just so, I probably didn't say enough because I was just listening. I was just taking everything on. I was more like a, bro.
I feel like I talk too much. I'm always a bit conscious about like, I can't find my words in English sometimes.
Oh, mate,
it's not my first language, but
Mate, you smashed it, man. You smashed it. It was amazing. So no,
thank you. I appreciate
thank you so
that.
much. Check out Rockwell's socials and the boys in general. Oh, mate, a pleasure, man. Drops 6 p.m. every Monday, people. Go and check us out on the socials, The Hype Report. If you listen on Spotify, go and click the little heart button and go and drop a like if you're on YouTube as well. Again, Rockwell, thank you. We'll have to come back on again soon, because we could probably sit here for about 6-7 hours.
If there are specific topics, I would be happy to for sure.
But yeah, all the best, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.